can change the world.
From soccer stardom to education excellence, Michael Tetteh with us today. Michael, welcome.
Thank you very much, Stan. I'm excited to be here, and let's get this show going.
Absolutely. Your story is a great one, but what I want to do first is I want you to tell us about the One Kingdom Foundation, because that's what you're working on right now.
Absolutely. Well, the One Kingdom Foundation is an organization that I started in 2011 when I was drafted to come and play for the Seattle Sounders. And, you know, growing up in a poverty environment, you know, I grew up having a vision to, you know, play soccer and use that as a platform to come back to my home and empower the kids in my country. And so, you know, we started it in 2011, and so far it's been going great. We are in our third year, and we are slowly moving ahead to really build a leadership school for the kids in my country. Because
I want to talk an awful lot about that,
okay,
but let's talk about you first. I mean,
okay.
On the website, the One Kingdom website, which we will have up on the screen several times throughout the show, we first talk about how you grew up in a mud hut. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yep. You know, I always tell people I never slept on the floor until I came to, I never slept on a bed until I came to America. You know, I grew up in a dirt poverty, and you know, you've been to Ghana, so you've seen kind of some of those areas. But we grew up very poor. I grew up in a house where we only had one bedroom. Our house was made out of a mud hut. You know, I always joke and say mosquitoes were my best friends, because we sometimes I wanted to sleep and I couldn't sleep. You know, we were so poor that we couldn't even pay attention. And it was difficult growing up. I grew up with my brothers and my sisters, and life was...
How many brothers and sisters?
I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and life was just very difficult.
So you actually had a small family by Ghanaian means.
Absolutely. I had a very small family, and you know, we lived in the village until we had to move to the city. So yeah, I grew up in a very poor environment.
Growing up like that, well, first off, what did your parents do for a living, if you will?
My dad was an architect. My dad actually had a very good job. My mom didn't work, and you know, she was a stay-home mom. But my dad had a good job, and when we were growing up in our environment, my dad actually got a transfer from the village to the city, and so, you know, everything was okay until actually we got to the city, where my dad started kind of going off on a different side, where my dad became an alcoholic, and he wouldn't take care of us, and it was a difficult time growing up in Ghana. And you know, one of the things that I always say to my friends was, you know, watching my dad growing up really had a tremendous impact on my life, because what he did actually prevented me from doing a lot of things growing up.
Like what?
Like alcohol, like getting involved with drugs, because I saw my dad, alcohol nearly killed my dad when we were growing up. You know, he wouldn't take care of us, he wouldn't pay our fees to go to school. So when I was growing up, it was a struggle for my brothers and I to even get education. It was actually my mom who literally had to sell some of her stuff to put us through school. So it was a very difficult time.
Were there other kids? Did you have other friends that were like you, lived in similar circumstances?
I had a couple friends actually that lived with us when we moved to the city, that were in that same environment. But actually moving from the village to the city, it was different, because I actually didn't know how poor we were until I got to the city, when I actually saw kids like myself who were not super wealthy, but were living in a way where I had never seen before. So it was a total shock.
Let me ask you this. What is wealthy to you in Ghana?
Well, wealthy to me is being able to provide, have the basic necessity of life, like food, like water, like having shelter, having a place where you can sleep. In Ghana, how I was growing up, that was a struggle for us. Obviously now I've been in America over a decade now, and you know, when we talk about wealth and everything, but back home, you know, just the basic necessity of life were scarce for us.
But you had something good happen to you though, and it was soccer.
I had something very good happen for me. You know, when I was growing up, when I was about 5 years old, I knew exactly what I want to do in life, and that was become a professional soccer player. I discovered my gift at a very young age, that I was born to play soccer and then speak. So I had those two gifts, and literally soccer took over my life. I always say I played soccer, I ate soccer, I slept soccer. I literally lived the game. And when I discovered that gift, I knew I could do something with it. I knew it could be a way for me to get out of poverty and actually come back and support my family. So soccer was it was big when I was growing up.
Did you go to school?
Well, if I could tell my whole story is I was in school, but because I discovered soccer, school became a problem for me. I didn't want to go to school anymore because I would go out and I would play the game till it's very, very dark before I come back home. And when I discovered soccer, I literally didn't want to do anything else. And in fact, I started playing what we call back home truancy, which means you were being a bad boy. I didn't want to go to school. In fact, my parents thought I was in school, but I will run away with my friends and I'll go out and play soccer for a while before I come home. And actually, my parents figured it out that my teachers called home and they were like, "What's wrong with Michael? He hasn't been coming to school." And when they found out that I wasn't going to school, they brought me home, and instead of me apologizing to my friends, my mom and my brothers, I got upset. And so I actually, at the age of 9, I left home, and I was out on the street. I had nowhere to sleep, no food to eat. I was sleeping in people's taxis, and taxi they start like 4 in the morning, and so I'll sleep. And then when it's time for them to go to their work, I will get up and walk
And that was in Accra.
And that was in Accra.
A
and
big city of millions of people.
Big city, in fact.
And there's a lot of dangerous things in big cities.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I did was I'll go to the beach. I'll use that as my shower, and then I'll go to different chop bars in Ghana, and then that's the way I was able to provide food for myself. But I talk about this in my book. I call it the day I met myself. I was out on the street one day sitting down, and I was sitting down in the tree, and I felt like something was speaking to me. I felt like God was speaking to me, like, "Michael, like, what are you doing? You have a family that love you. Go back home and apologize." And it was actually that day when I got home, I apologized to them, and it was that same day that I heard on the news that there was this soccer academy, and they're doing a tryout for kids who think they can play soccer professionally or who have an aspiration to play soccer. And that was when I heard on the news that they were putting a tryout the next day, and literally everything changed in my life.
By the way, before we forget about it, you are writing a book right now.
I'm writing a book right now.
And as we speak, it's going to be released October the 10th, 2014.
2014, absolutely. My mentor, John Maxwell, is doing a leadership simulcast, and because I'm one of John's mentors and one of John's team members, I have the privilege to host that in Seattle. Actually, it's actually going to be at Mesa Island Community Center, and it's going to be for about 225 people, and it's going to be an absolutely amazing event, and that's when I'll be launching my book as well. Yeah.
All right, so we will make sure that if we can get a copy of the cover by the time that this show gets out, that we will put it up there as well. But regardless, we'll let people know. They can go to the One Kingdom Foundation website, and then they can find out more about you, probably in the book too, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so you went to this soccer academy. Was it school too?
So it began, it was, when I heard on the news that they were doing a tryout, I went the next day. My parents couldn't afford for me to take a taxi to the training field, so I had to run 2 hours to the tryouts. And when I got there, there was about 500 kids that showed up, all hungry to make it. It was a week-long tryout, and we'll go every day, and then they will narrow the list down, and they selected 18 of us. And
so you would go every day. It would be a 2-hour run.
2-hour
to get
run,
there?
2-hour back, 2-hour run. Go for
My
the
goodness,
tryout.
you were committed, weren't you?
I was very, very committed, and then 2-hour back, and we did that for a week, and 18 of us were selected, and so we moved and lived with the coach, and we lived there for 5 years. And when we were there, it was 18 of us. All have an aspiration to play soccer professionally. We didn't want to do anything but soccer, but coach wanted us to get education as well, so they mixed the education and the soccer together. But really, literally, we were there because we want to become professional soccer players. And while we were there, literally everything changed for us. And it wasn't easy. Even at the academy, we still had to struggle and work extremely hard. We were, they call us the first generation. We literally started the academy with coach who was from England, by the way. And you know, we got together and then we started the academy. And
so there were 18 of you, and did you all live with a coach?
we all lived with a coach.
You had a big house, huh?
He rented a big home back in Ghana when we started, and we lived with him, and it was pretty rough times. But you know, we were focused. We had a vision to become professional soccer
Wait a minute,
players.
you say it was pretty rough times. I mean, you were living in the street in a cab. I mean,
Absolutely.
Was the academy rougher than that?
Well, when it started, the academy didn't have a lot of money. And there were times where it was a struggle because there was times where they couldn't even get food for us to eat. And sometimes, and I say it's a struggle because sometimes, you know, we'll go play a game where we don't play very well. And there were several times where our coach would get pretty upset with us. And so we had to work extremely, extremely hard. So
you got mad because you didn't win, and then he wouldn't feed you?
Oh yeah, there were several things that happened. But it was.
Well, now don't tease us this way. I mean, people right now, they're wanting to say, well, what are you talking about, Michael? What happened? I mean, this is not a good thing to bring kids in and then exploit them like that. Just be blunt about it.
It was difficult. And if I'll be honest, yes, it was difficult. We play games where we didn't do very well, and there were times where we couldn't eat. And some guys that started with us, they couldn't continue because some of the things that happened at the academy was very difficult. And right now the academy has grown, and you know, it's become a much better place. Even though there's still some struggles there, and there are things that needs to be changed. But there were guys that couldn't continue. But there were a couple of us where we knew we had no option but to continue.
Let's talk about the school aspect of it, because ultimately you came to the United States to play soccer.
Absolutely.
For a college.
Absolutely. Well, you know, when we were at the academy, we were playing games. And like I said, when there was 18 of us, and we were 13, 14-year-old kids, and we would play against guys that were way older than us. And so, in fact, how I got to come to America was we were playing against the University of Ghana. We were 13, 14-year-olds, and we were playing against, you know, these older guys, and we were beating them. And because, you know, we've been together for a long time. And while we were there was actually a coach from Santa Barbara who came to do recruiting at a university, and he saw the game and he was confused, like, what is happening here? And so after the game, he came and spoke to our coach, that who are these kids? And then so they began that conversation. That he came back to Santa Barbara, went to the high school that I eventually graduated from, went and told the headmaster, look, we've seen these kids in Ghana, you have to do something with them. And then, you know, one thing led to another. The headmaster called the academy, spoke to our coach, and then they gave scholarship to two of my friends who actually were the first people that came to America first, and they were phenomenal. They literally transformed the whole school, just with their attitude, with who they were, their humility, and the school wanted more boys, and that was when, you know, I got the chance to come.
So
to
at
America.
age 14, 15?
At age 15. So
15.
I got to America when I was 15 years old. Hardly knew nothing about America. You know, I had my friends here. And
could you speak English?
I could speak very good English. In fact, when I came, they thought I was from England because we used to live with a bunch of British people that came to the academy. We traveled with them. So my English was pretty good. Yeah, I arrived in America, and you know, I went through a whole culture shock where, you know, I got to LA. In fact, my first sight out of America was when I saw this girl running with a little chihuahua with clothes on the dog, and I literally turned and looked at my friend. I'm like, are you kidding me? I thought I was on a different planet. I didn't know. You put clothes on a dog, and I got to my high school.
Actually, LA is a different planet. But that's okay.
You know, people were running with their dogs, and I was just confused. But, you know, 10 years later, I'm getting married to an American girl who was a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel, and she puts clothes on the dog, and I find myself walking the dog sometimes. So, you know.
Well, what were some of the other things that were culture shock for you?
Just the high school that I went to, the kids had to pay close to $50,000 a year to get to the school.
My goodness.
They were driving cars where I was telling my friends, oh my word, our parents would probably never drive a car like that. Just the wealth and just the environment and just the gravity of how much stuff people had it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. And one of the things was, my high school, I got to the school where I was growing up, I struggled to get food to eat. And I came to my high school where people were puking, throwing up food so they could attain a certain type of body figure. That was probably the biggest shock that I experienced, because it didn't make sense to me that there were people in my country who are struggling to get food to eat. And here in this environment where there's food, there's everything around us, and people were throwing it away. So that was a big culture shock for me.
So you went on, you played soccer in high school, you got your high school education, a college liked you, and you played
Absolutely.
soccer for them, and I'm sorry that I'm fast forwarding, but we
Yep.
got to get to the
Yeah,
schools.
absolutely.
And then you went on to play professional soccer.
And then I went on to play professional soccer when I was, I got a scholarship to go to college. And then while I was in college, I got the Generation Adidas, where it's a program where Adidas picks, the top 10 college players, sophomore, juniors, and freshmen who they believe that can play at the next level. And I was one of the guys that was selected. And then, I went on and I was selected by Seattle Sounders. And so that's when I ended up in Seattle, and it's been absolutely amazing.
But
Yeah.
you don't play for the Sounders anymore.
I don't play for the Sounders anymore because I have a higher calling.
You changed your focus.
I've
What is it?
completely changed my focus, and that was, when I was with the Sounders, I was loaned out to Florida to play for a different team because I went through a lot of injuries. And while I was coming back, I was in Florida, and I was sleeping one night, and as I woke up in the middle of the night, I was looking at the ceiling, I saw clear details of the school, of my vision, of what I've been wanting to do as a young kid. I saw clear details. I saw kids running on campus. I saw the classroom. I saw the auditorium. I literally saw everything. And it was so big that I was afraid, because I'm like, me going to do this, because it's a huge project. And I came back, and after a season, I called my agent, and I told him, I'm gonna let go of the game, because I have discovered what it is that I'm supposed to do for the rest of my life. And I let go of the game to focus on my vision of, building a leadership school in Ghana, and really empowering people, inspiring people, speaking, sharing my story, and so some of the stuff that I've learned on my journey so far.
Are you building this school in Ghana?
Yes.
Because you don't want children to be living in mud huts or on the streets of Accra in cabs?
When I grew up, one of the things that I discovered was environment is the key to life. And when I was growing up, instead of us going to school, we had to walk miles to get water. We had to help our parents to feed, to put food on the table. And so when you are in that poverty environment, you become constricted by what's immediate, because you look around you and all you see is poverty. And you don't have the ability, you don't get the ability to see your future. And if you don't have a vision, where there's no vision, people perish. And so if you don't have a village, you don't have the ability to see your future, to dream, you will end up being poor for the rest of your life. And so the school, it's a boarding leadership school where we want to take kids from the environment of poverty into an environment where they wouldn't have to worry about food to eat, clothes to wear, a place to sleep, an environment where they can focus on dreaming bigger, to discovering who they really are, so they can also make a positive impact to our communities in Ghana. I absolutely believe that, because I look around now. There are kids who came from Ghana to America, and today I see them and I'm like, if this can happen to every single kid in Africa, every single kid in the world will become a better place. We need to provide good environment for our youth, and that's what's lacking in my country.
There is a theory that poverty fuels terrorism.
Mm-hmm.
And often, and actually, young people in poverty are prey to terrorist
Absolutely.
groups. Did that thought ever cross your mind, or did you have friends that talked about that, and maybe, hey, there's a way out of poverty. All we have to do is go join this group?
That thought never crossed my mind, even though I knew that was going on. Back in my country went through slavery, oppression, colonization, and back in time where my people went through extreme oppression. And today that kind of oppression has shifted, where in my country you have many talented soccer players where people from outside comes and they prey on them. But when I was growing up, we knew that. But I was very stubborn. I discovered who I really was at a very young age. And it came through, my faith is huge in everything that I do. And so that actually protected me. When we were in the academy, I met a guy who literally became kind of my mentor when I was growing up. And he will sit us down and teach us about God and everything. And that was such a huge thing that he did for us, probably more important than actually going to the academy, because it really protected me from that sort of topic where I would just sell myself because poverty is extreme in my country. But that still goes on up to today.
Let's talk about the school you're building.
Absolutely.
Is it, right now you already have the land, right?
We have 62 acres of land to do the project, yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And so you're in the process of raising funds to build it.
Absolutely.
Now, it's going to be a boarding school, is that right?
It's going to be a boarding school. It's going to be a boarding school.
Why is that important?
Like we just talked about, it's very important because I believe you look at the environment of poverty. The struggle there is people don't get to focus on what they are really good at because you are struggling to put food on the table. Your parents, kids are walking miles to fetch water. And so if we can get them out of that environment into a place where they come and they don't have to worry about anything else, but just focus on education, focus on discovering their true purpose in life, focus on their gifts and their talent, they will make a positive impact.
Is it a soccer school?
It's not a soccer school. And that was, when I was beginning, is it going to be a soccer academy? No, it's going to be a leadership school because I believe everything rises and falls on leadership, John Maxwell says to us. And I believe nothing happens without leadership. Nothing improves without leadership. Nothing changes without leadership. Our country is lacking true leadership. And so I believe we can grow a generation of youth coming up where they are trained in what true leadership is. Our countries will become a better place.
Is the school for boys and girls?
School is for boys and girls, and that is a huge thing because mostly in my country, boys are given more opportunities than girls. And I know the power that's in female, the power that's in girl. Look at Liberia. When it was the civil war in Liberia, UN was there, the government, all the warlords and everything. The people that were able to stop that civil war were a bunch of moms. They were able to stop civil war. And I believe if we can give more opportunities to girls, our countries will become a better place.
What's the grade levels of the school?
So it's going to be in high school where we want to really prepare them. So we give them the opportunity. If they get an opportunity to come here in America to get education, we'll provide them that opportunity. But we want to start at a high school level, yes.
What's the curriculum going to be?
So I'm glad you asked that because one of our founders on our board is Chief Labi, who is an educator, and he's been educated in Nigeria, in the U.S., in Ghana. He has his PhD, and right now he's a counselor at Garfield High School. So when I met, in fact, he was the one that gave the land to do the project in Ghana. He has a heart to do really great things in my country, and he's gonna helping us developing the curriculum in terms of math, English, all the other necessary stuff that the kids will need. But mainly, all our leadership curriculum is gonna come from my affiliation with John Maxwell, and that's pretty incredible. He's known all over the world, and it's exciting to be involved with him.
The community in Ghana where you would like to have this school, or the people that you know in Ghana, are they saying to you, yeah, you go, this is going to be great?
They can wait. In fact, it's impatience now is because they want the project to come. And so it's been great actually to get the support from the community. Chief, I've gone back to Ghana several times and he's presented it to the chiefs in my country. And that's one thing too is chiefs in my country own the land and everything. And I believe if we can empower them, to really understand what true leadership is and how to serve their people, we will do great things in my country. And so right now, we've gotten a great support from the community over there, and we're looking to do more stuff.
Where are you going to get your teachers?
Chief, Chief, he's big in that area, and he will be the one to recruit all the teachers in my country. They're all going to be local people in my country, obviously educated, and we'll go through that process when we are ready.
How many students?
So we'll probably start with about 80 students, and then once we grow, we'll expand, because it's 62 acres of land, and so we have more time to create more stuff. But
how much are the students going to have to pay?
It's they don't have to pay anything.
It's a scholarship.
Absolutely, it's a scholarship. And so what we are working on now is getting it so that it's self-sustaining, so the kids don't have to worry about anything. The academy that I went to, I didn't have to pay to go to. I had to bring, it was because of my gift and my talent that got me there. And I think it's important that I also provide that same
If students aren't
opportunity.
paying, then how is it going to be self-sustaining?
So, as the board and the leadership of the school, as we're discussing right now, is we're coming up with different ways to make sure that we can get it to that point. So that conversation is still going. I have a lot of different people on the board telling, well, how are we going to get it sustained if the kids are not paying anything? But I absolutely believe there's a way for us to do it, and we're having that conversation right now.
We have less than a minute left in the show. 5 years from now, we're sitting back again at this very table, and I ask you this question: how'd you do? What will you say?
5 years from now, we'll have a thriving school where kids are being inspired, encouraged to really discover who they really are, to make an impact in the world. 5 years from now, I'll be traveling all over the world, sharing my book and speaking. My mission and my calling in life is to inspire leaders and inspire our youth and speak all over the world, and have a family. I'm getting married, obviously getting married in August. Have a family, and my wife and I will be traveling and speaking. She's another great speaker, and so we see ourselves traveling and speaking, and really she has a vision to inspire youth, girls especially. So we'll be traveling.
It's a date, 5 years from now.
5 years from now.
Michael Tetteh, One Kingdom Foundation, coming to Ghana with a fantastic school. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Rainmaker believes we can change the world, live to inspire and to be inspired, to be inspired. A generation's opportunity, a chance to make a real change, lead us into harmony, where the chorus will sustain. Time flows freely as a river of souls to man, spanning dreams and valleys.